Hey, how's it going and welcome to The Guitar Effect. My name's Rob. This is going to be the first in a number of episodes based around the Line 6 HX Effects multi-effects processor. And before we get into it, I'll ask you to please like and subscribe so you can be kept up to date with everything we're doing here at The Guitar Effect. And on that note, I've been looking at my analytics and only 2% of the people that are watching these videos are subscribed. So I'd ask you to stay tuned for as much of the video as you can, and if you like it and you want to see more, please drop a like and give me a subscription, and by all means, positive or negative comments are welcome in the comment section below. So with the housekeeping aside, as I'm sure some of you may know if you've watched any of my other videos, I record all the guitars for these videos, and also any guitars I record at home for either demoing or indeed tracking electric guitars on any records that I'm working on for any bands that I'm in, using my guitar into an analog pedal board, which I have another video on, and then straight into my amp. And the pedal board has all my gain pedals and some modulation pedals and some time-based effects on it. A while ago, I kind of realised that while I do love all those effects, there was some time-based effects predominantly that I was missing, and it was going to be prohibitively expensive for me to buy them in individual pedals, and also some of those effects simply can't be achieved in an analog way. So I decided I would plump out for a Line 6 HX Effects and replace a lot of the pedals on that board with it. And so its predominant use is going to be as a recording device for me, and even at that, predominantly it's going to be for big reverbs, a variety of delays, and also to allow me to, I've bought a new amplifier, which I'll show you in a few minutes, allow me to switch between two different amplifiers with a foot switch depending on what tone I'm looking for a particular track I'm recording. It's a very powerful unit in terms of its switching capabilities and how it can route things. And so I decided to stick it on the board to facilitate that. Before I get into it, there's obviously some other options that one could go for this particular application. Like there's the Boss MS3, which I also have. And the reason I didn't turn to that was because I've had that for about a year, maybe even more, maybe 18 months. And while the switching capabilities of it are probably better than the HX effects, the actual effects themselves, like the inbuilt delays and reverbs and modulation effects, are fit for purpose and no more. They're not very inspirational. They're kind of workmanlike and do a really good job in a covers situation, you know, for your basic delay or even modulated delay, but they don't really inspire you. They're not filled with character. I use a TC Electronic Flashback X4 and a TC Hall of Fame on my main originals big board, which I have also made a video about. And I love TC Electronics algorithms for delay and reverb, which would lead you to believe, why didn't you get the plethora X5? And there's just some things about the X5 that I just find bafflingly badly designed. So the fact that you can't set up presets, you can set up pedal boards, but not presets. And you could treat them as presets, but how it's badly set out to work like that. I thought a long time about buying an X5 or a HX Effects, and it just seemed at the end of the day like the best compromise between usability and quality of sound was the HX Effects. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be using it in a recording context, and I'll be making a video about how I'm going to integrate it into my pedal board for that purpose. But what I'm going to start off with tonight is using it in a really simple context, right? So using it as the main controller for your rig, and using it in that capacity in isolation. So without any outboard pedals, but using an amp head in this case for my clean and dirty sounds, and then using the HX effects to both switch channels on my amp and then augment that with all its onboard effects. So I'm going to make a diagram to show you how I'm going to patch it all in, because I'm using 4-cable method and channel switching. So I'm going to show you this diagram now and talk you through how I have it set up, and then after that we'll get into some sounds. So let's take a look. Okay, so as you can hopefully see from the diagram, this is showing how I'm connecting my Line 6 HX Effects with my Laney L5 Lionheart studio 5 watt amp. Incidentally, the amp has no cab running. It has a really good direct out that's running direct into the interface, right? So if my eyes go off screens because I'm looking at the diagram to see what I'm talking about. So, okay, what I'm going to do is just talk you through the connections that you make, and then afterwards I'll explain why it's good to set it up like this. So the first connection that you make is with the yellow lead, as you can see in the diagram, you plug your guitar into the left mono input of the HX effect, okay? And the next thing you do is you take the effects send number 1 or number 2, but as long as you use the same send and return for the next part I'm going to show you, and you plug it into the Laney's guitar input on the front, okay? Then you take the effects return and you plug it into the Laney's effects loop send on the back of the amp. Then the fourth thing you do is you plug the mono left output of the HX effects into the effects return of the Laney amp. And the last thing you do then is you take the pedal / external amp output number 1 or number 2, whichever one you choose to use, and you plug it into the foot switch jack for changing channels on the back of the amp. So that's all illustrated with the lines in the back of the diagram. So what that does in effect is it takes a guitar signal, puts it into HX effects, then takes an effects loop from the HX effects and places the amp's preamp, right? So between the input and the effects end is the preamp, which is where all the EQ and gain structuring that's not in the power amp goes on. And it takes that and it puts it in the effects loop. Then within the HX effects, you can move that effects loop to wherever you want on the effects chain. And the reason you do this, it's called the 4-cable method, for anybody who doesn't know, and I'm assuming most people that watch this would know. But the reason you do this is because it allows you to take any gain-based effects and put them in front of the preamp, which is where they sound best, and any time-based effects, such as delay and reverb, and put them after the amp. You wouldn't do this, there would be no need to do this if you're running the amp clean and using either the inbuilt pedals or inbuilt effects, I should say, gain effects in the HX effects, or else using external stomp boxes plugged into the loops of the HX effects. You wouldn't need to do this. The only reason you need to do it is because if you're using distortion from your amplifier and not from a pedal, delay and reverb really needs to come after it, unless you want to put it before for a specific purpose to get a specific effect for a specific moment in a set or a specific song. So what this does is it allows you to run the preamp of your amp in the correct place in the signal chain. Incidentally, the other thing it would allow you to do is, if you took, say, a Joyo AC tone, so a Vox simulation pedal, and you plugged it into the other effects loop, you could actually switch between the preamp of the Laney amplifier, or you could actually run the AC tone as, effectively emulating a Vox AC30 or any preamp pedal instead of the Laney, and you could switch between them on a preset by preset basis, which is pretty cool. So the reason I have it set up like this is because I am running the Laney's preamp for my distortion. My principal overdrive sound, my bass overdrive sound, is coming from the amp. So then all my gain effects, bar one, and I'll explain that in a minute, all my gain effects are before the preamp, and then all of the time-based effects, so actually my modulation effects are generally before the preamp as well, but that's down to personal preference, whether you want your choruses or phasers or rotaries or any sort of modulation before or after the preamp is personal preference. I run them beforehand, and then my delays and reverbs come afterwards. And that's basically the reason that I thought it was worthwhile showing this diagram. The other reason is, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to be making a series of these videos demonstrating the capabilities of the HX effects. And I'm going to do a diagram for each one of them because I'm going to set it up in a different way each time. Okay, so I suppose with that, if you want this diagram, by the way, I'll put it in the link. I'll put a link in the description to download it. So with that, let's have a listen to some sounds. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to start this series of videos by just showing, in my opinion, like the most basic way of using this setup this evening. So my setup is, as I've shown you with the diagram, guitar into HS effects, into the Laney L5 and then the Laney L5 is going direct out into the computer. And then I have the preamp of the L5 in the effects loop. So, as you can see from the HSFX cam, I have the bank up and bank down switch, and then I have 4 patches. I have clean, dirty, lead, and crunch. It's the same sort of setup of 4 patches that I use on the MS3 for my current covers rig. Right, and what I'm going to do is just show you how you could use the HX effects to be your controller in just by itself, using the onboard distortions and delays and reverbs and modulations and everything. So I'm going to start off by showing you the clean tones that I have. First of all, I'll just switch between the 4 patches, right? So, by the way, I set all this up using the editor because it's a lot more straightforward and easy to use the editor. But I'm not going to show the editor because I'm not using it right now. So here's the clean sound. I'm using my 60th anniversary US Fender Strat. Sounds like a Strat, but it does have a humbucker in the bridge. So I mean, it works equally well for, like, you know, it's worth noting actually that I have the red comp not on a switch and just on all the time, and its mix is about 50%. So that's the main sound. This is the out of phase sound. Want to go and do the same thing, or I'll just show you the back pickup. So this is the humbucker, and say I wanted to go from that into a dirty patch, I just hit the dirty switch, turns on the dirty channel on my amp and doesn't change anything else. To go for a heavy part of it, and then go for a solo. And effectively, I would spend most of my night at any gig switching between those 4 patches. Now, and like with that, the only thing it did was it switched on some pedals and it changed channels on the amp, and the dirty, crunch and lead sounds are all the dirty channel on the amp with some augmentation from pedals, and the clean sound is the clean channel on the amp. So I'm going to go back to clean sound. So it's pretty straightforward. It's really easy to set up. I'm going to go into each one of these sounds in the pedal mode and show you what each sound does or how it's made up, right? But you can see that your 4 switches on the ground are all really easy to get to. There's a tuner that I think does a pretty good job. Close enough. Okay, so let's say that within the clean patches, which is where I spend most of the first part of the wedding band set, I wanted to augment some things. So maybe I wanted to have that riff that I was doing, but I wanted it with a chorus. So I got second back pickup. '70s chorus. So what I did there was I switched from preset mode into what effectively is, I suppose, pedalboard mode, right? Which is where each switch, including the 2 bank switches, which I like, turns into an individual switch for an individual effect that I have programmed within that chain of the particular preset. So I can't remember the exact order. I think it's going the compressor, and then the tube screamer, and then the chorus, and then the effects loop, and then the simple delay, and then the alpha man, which is a memory man. So the other effects that I have available to me are, I have a simple delay, or for different sounds, I could maybe turn on the amp channel, turn down the volume a little bit. Nah, just clean. Even there. And you can see that it's a really nice chorus sound. Simple delay just adds a little bit of, it's just a digital delay with pretty low mix and maybe 2 or 3 repeats. And it just gives a little bit of space. These are all very poppy sounds because it's my wedding band, and it's, you know, obviously you have to play a lot of pop in a wedding band. So the other thing I can choose to do then is I can choose to play a solo, maybe a clean solo, and for that I can just hit this kinky boost, which interestingly is after the effects loop. So everything that my preamp is doing is getting amplified by the kinky boost. It's not going into the front end. Okay, and then the other thing I can do is I can add a tube screamer if I want. Pretty nice sounding tube screamer actually. So my thinking then with the layout of these pedals is that I could, for example, choose to hit the tube screamer and get a more kind of bluesy sort of clean sound. Not clean at all. So I could be playing that part. Go for solo. It's all there in single switches in front of me. And I think how this is of benefit to you is you'd have your 4 sounds that you'd spend most of the night switching between. So you'd have a clean sound, you'd have a dirty sound, you'd have a heavy sound for the odd song that you need a heavy sound for, and then you'd have your lead sound. So you're probably going clean lead, dirty lead, heavy lead maybe. But then it works quite well actually when you go into pedal mode, that if you have a song where you spend most of your night in the clean mode, you could go into the clean patch here,
hit this switch and go in here for the duration of that song to give it a little bits of flavour when you want. Now, one thing I will say about this that I think is a possible drawback, but I don't really see a way around it. If you are in here playing with these effects and you decide you want to get to your lead sound, there's no way to do that except to hit the mode switch and then go to the lead patch. So for example, I'm playing in the clean sound. I go, okay, do you know what? That would be nice, some chorus on. I go in here and turn on the chorus. So what I'd have to do then is go. So you have to hit two switches in that situation to get to your lead sound. Now, alternatively, I have it set up so that I could just quite easily within the clean patch do that. See, and also I've picked particular effects to put within this patch that would suit more than likely where I'm starting from in that clean patch. So I'm more than likely going to want, if it's a clean song that's predominantly using that sound, it's probably going to make more sense for me to step on a tube screamer than go to a big screaming lead sound. So that's why that's in there. And then obviously if I'm already in the screamer sound, so I can choose to go. So I always like to have a boost and a lead when I'm using individual pedals, just so I've always got somewhere extra to go. So you've seen the simple delay. It's just a. And the other effect I have in here is the Elephant Man, which is the memory man, which is a modulated delay. And there's this one song that we play that goes like this. And I can then choose to go in here. Switch to the dirty channel within that patch, which would mean for that song I could just stay in the clean patch the whole time if I wanted to, and all the effects I need are there. It's the only time I use that Elephant Man, though it does work well for works well for that sound. So that's the way that I have the unit set up, and that's the contents of the clean sound. And as I said, most of the night I would spend out here in this preset mode just the lead sound is a little bit toppy. I'm going to need to have to address that. So this is just patch 2, which is a dirty channel on the amp. And if I go into it, you can see all the effects that I've selected in this are off, and it's just that dirty channel. Okay, and then we go a few other things I can do. I can switch back to the clean channel. Then I've got the Minotaur, which is a clone centaur type pedal. The reason I have that selected over the tube screamer is with the particular songs I'm in this preset for, they tend to be the kind of bashy, trashy kind of, you know. Or That seems to be the best type of pedal. And also on my board where I use outboard pedals, I use a clone for that, so it works well. Again, it might be a little bit toppy there, but it could be just the sound of my earphones. Okay, so I either have the basic sound, I can go more gainy, I can stick on a boost, but again the boost is after the power amp. Excuse me, the boost is after the preamp, and it's just there really as a volume boost. Okay, then the other effects I have in here is I have that 70s chorus again. And then I have this mod chorus echo, which is again is specifically for works for that really well. If I go to the incidentally, that particular effect is one of the legacy pedals from the M series, so it was on the Echo Park pedal as well, and it's really good. So the other thing you'll see here is the plateau, but I have that for, if I turn on the Minotaur as well, is for With or Without You again. If I choose to do it from this patch, I have the high up echo effect. So works acceptably well. And that's what's in that patch. Okay, so then we move from dirty to crunch. It's my in effect my heavy sound for songs I need a heavy sound for, instead of in here. We've got some cool options in here again. So we've got the Tima, which is a Timmy clone, which is the same as the crunch sound, or the dirty sound, I should say. This is the crunch sound, and this is the difference, is this Tima pedal on top of it. Okay, and then the other thing is I can put the boost on. Okay, interestingly enough, the boost is before it's after the Timmy, but before the preamp and the amp in this case, because it just worked better with the interacting with the Timmy pedal in that way. So I have that transistor tape. And the other effect I have in this is I have this chorus. And the reason for that is because we do it's good for that. And also we do a little bit of Nirvana, so if I go completely clean. It's not the 70s chorus, and I think it's a little bit less warbly and vibrato-y. It's just a kind of more sort of subdued sounding chorus, and sounds good for that 90s stuff. Yeah, or I can choose both of them. Probably more like the sound. And they are I don't really use the Elephant Man one in this, I don't think. No, it's just there in legacy from when I set all the patches up. And then the last sound, obviously, I have is my lead sound. It's just a standard, big, dramatic lead sound. I go to that for when I'm playing in any other particular. So I could be doing, for example, no need to go outside the presets for this. Or I could be even in the clean sound and doing. Yeah, that lead sound probably got a little bit too much top end in it, but just to show you, then that's how I would spend most of the evening, is just going through the kind of standards with the HS effects set up in this preset mode, and then if I wanted to go into any one of these presets and get a little bit of flavour, I can. It's interesting to note actually that how I did put this together was I went into the editing software and set up the clean patch with the switch being here for my amp switching and 2 drive pedals in front and then delay and modulation up the back, and then copied that into the next 4 patches and then just changed elements. That way everything was laid out the same way. And it worked really well in that respect. It's panned out well, like, and it's easy to navigate, and I think it's quite usable in that respect. Yeah, so I think that's gone through all the sounds and shown you the functionality as I intend to use it. So yeah, I hope that was explanatory and interesting and useful.
So there you have it, folks. My first look at the Line 6 HX effects in a just simple sounds and amp switching and one center point of your live rig capacity. And I think it does an admirable job. There's probably only one augmentation that would make it better, and that's the ability to add an external foot switch to toggle effects on and off while in preset mode. But other than that, I think it's a pretty impressive piece of gear. I don't think the delay and reverb algorithms are really there at the level of TC Electronic, but they're very, very close. Yeah, so this is the first, as I said, of many videos. I think the next one will be using it on a pedal board for recording as a standalone group of 6 different pedals that you could have any different function for. So that'll probably be next week. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave some comments, like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. And I'll see you soon, I guess. Yeah, take it easy.